Basically, this is quite a difficult topic to present, and I think it's very wide, and I don't know whether I would have adequate time to present, but I'll try and focus to limit the discussion to the essence of the problems that we're facing in this part of the country and the world, in the Muslim world, right? So basically, just like what Dr. mentioned, that the most important thing when we talk about UAT is this particular verse. Yeah? In this verse, in this particular verse, basically, it embodies the entire, what you call, message of what Al-Quran and God have tried to tell us, right? That we are basically a nation, ummatan wahidah. And this particular verse, it says that Inna hadhihi ummatukum ummatan wahidah wa ana rabbukum fa'budun. Indeed, this, your religion is one religion, and I am your Lord, so worship me. This is from Surah Al-Anbiya. You see, this particular verse, even though it embodies the essence of what we call as a Muslim unity, but in the actual sense that we have so many denominations in Islam, and this is the problem that what we're facing in this particular era. Yeah. So let me see let me look at this what you call particular verse, which I think is very, very important for all of us to understand. And this has been recited in so many places and in so many events. But I would like to bring you to the importance of it. Yeah? وَاقْتَسِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا وَكُنْتُمْ شَفَا حُفْرَةٍ مِنَ النَّارِ فَأَنْقَذَكُم مِنْهَا كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَهْتَدُونَ. Meaning to say that in this particular verse, God reminds the Muslim at that time, the Muslim in Medina, hold firmly to the rope of Allah all together and do not become divided. Yeah? And remember the favor of Allah upon you when you were enemies, and He brought your hearts together. فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ. He brought your hearts together. فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. And you became by His favor brothers. فَأَنْقَذَكُم مِنْهَا. And you were on the and you were in the pit of fire, and He saved you from it. فَأَنْقَذَكُم مِنْهَا. وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ means that it says that you are basically the Muslim at that time in Medina were in a state where they're trying to trying to have this confrontation against each other, the Aus and Khazraj at that time. Yeah, and we know that they had the previous war, and thus Allah made clear to you His verses that you may be guided. This is from Surah Al-Imran. Yeah. So I would like you to have a look at this from one of the greatest Mufassir and Islamic ideologue, Shahid Sept in his Tafsir fi Zilal al-Quran. Yeah. And he says in this particular tafsir, when he was basically making an elaboration of this particular verse, he says, faith and brotherhood are two pillars upon which the structures of the Muslim community is built. If either of them collapses, the very existence of the Muslim community is undermined and its great role comes to nothing. Meaning to say that he says that you have to remember in Islam that there are two pillars, and these pillars, and both of these pillars are very, very important for us to understand. Right? And if you look at this particular verse, okay, the what we call as Asbabun Nuzul of this particular verse. It was stated that in the biographies of the Prophet Muhammad bin Isa and others, they reported that the verse was revealed on the occasion of a Jewish leader. This Jewish leader, practically, he walked past Muslims, the Aus and Khazraj of Medina at that time, and he saw them that they had this kind of brotherhood among them, and he was envious about them, and because of that, he sent an agent provocateur, to be among them, to basically to remind them of the fierce battles that had taken place between them, particularly the Battle of Moab, at that time. So that, it will remind them that they were enemies before. They fought against each other before. And he was trying to incite them. This particular incident is very important because I'm going to, basically in my previous slides, in my coming slides, I'll be mentioning to you about the importance of this agent provocateur, about why there is Muslim disunity now. Is because of this particular aspect. There's some people who are very uneasy, or there's some forces who are very uneasy about this Muslim solidarity. So, what I said just now is that these were basically from what Sept mentioned in Fizal al-Quran. So he said that we detected a feeling that the Muslim community was undergoing great troubles as a result of reports of the Jews in Medina. The same tactics have been employed at the time against Muslims everywhere in the world. You see that even now, that we will see later in my slides, that how this basically the enemies of Islam, even though now we prefer to have peace in this world, but we have to accept the reality. Everything is not rosy. That's what Dr. Fabri had mentioned. It's very good to build brotherhood and stuff, but we are facing these kind of issues in nowadays. So let's look at the causes of disunity in the Muslim Ummah. Basically, we are saying, basically, if you look at this, the concept of unity in Muslim Ummah, during the time of the Prophet, everybody lives in harmony. Everybody has a single reference, that is the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Right? But unfortunately, just after a quarter of a century after the death of the Prophet, Muslims were fighting against each other. They were two Muslim armies bearing swords and lances, faced each other at the bank of the Euphrates River, known as the War of Siffin. Basically, this is a war. It was a war between the armies of Ali and those of Muawiyah. And fellow Muslims spilling blood against each other. It was not far from the death of the Prophet. Just a quarter of a century. So, according to Rashid Ghanouchi, how could we explain this situation? When they were brothers in faith. When the brothers in faith, when the Prophet left them, just a quarter of a century, they were fighting against each other. They are not simply fighting with words, but they're fighting with swords and spears. Right? And Muslim blood was spilled at that time. And to Rashid Ghanouchi, a leader of Hizbul Nahda, the Renaissance Party, so he said that he quoted from Shahrastani to say that it was basically not about faith, but it was the questions of power at that time. This question of power has led to Muslims to fight against each other, and we see that even in this country, even though we don't kill each other, but it is because of power, right? The Islamic Party and the opponents, the current government, they're fighting each other. Of course, it's healthy because it's done to me, I don't know whether you agree, but to me, within a democratic framework, that is a healthy what we call discourse. among them. Yeah, even though they were, they had shown animosity towards each other, but I think it's still fair. It's still within the democratic framework. But this might not be true when you look at other parts of the Muslim world. Yeah? When you look at other parts of the Muslim world, this is basically not true. So, to me, the most important thing for us to understand and for us to appreciate now, to me, I'm not looking at, there are a lot of disunity, especially in political thoughts, political theories, and so on and so forth. We see it in this country, right? We see like we have the right-wing conservative Muslims on one hand, and then we have the Islamists as well, and then we have the reformists, and then we have the liberals, and we have the ultra-liberals as well. So there's a wide spectrum of Muslims in this particular country. But like I said, even though yesterday I attended this, I observed my Friday prayer in Kuching. Of course, the Shiites were vilified in the khutbah, and the liberals were vilified in the khutbah as well. But I think that the most important or the most, disastrous conflict among Muslims would be the conflict between the Sunni and Shia. So, if we look at this particular conflict between these two major denominations, to me and to many other political scientists as well, they look at it as represented. It is more of an economic battle between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Yeah? Iran representing the Shia and Saudi Arabia representing the Sunni, and basically they were trying to exert their power over the Muslims in the world. And of course, to get control of the Straits of Hormuz, which 20% of world oil passes through. Yeah? But if you look at history, they have lived alongside each other, right? They have lived alongside each other for 1,400 years. So to me, it's illogical when there is a country that came up with the fatwa to say that Shiites are non-believers. To me, it's utterly ridiculous. They have been living among Muslims for 1,400 years. Yeah? And I think this is the only country in the world that has that kind of fatwa. And you see, the thing is that why they could live together, right? Partly due to because Shia lost in the competition for political power. And because of that, you see, they have this kind of what we call as the quietist position, as advised by the sixth Shia Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. Meaning to say that, what I've read from the Shia ideology is that the most important thing is for them to do as if they live in exile, right? And wait for the coming of the Imam al-Mahdi, right? And to me, what happened during the Iranian Revolution was basically the Shiites learning from the Sunni, meaning not to wait for the Imam Mahdi, is what they believe, but to come up with a revolution to try and bring back the naive Imam. They call it, it's naive, yeah? Yeah. I want to say that, if we look at this Shia-Sunni rivalry, you cannot say that, there are no parallels to these 30 wars in the Christian history. You have wars between the Catholics and the Protestants as well, right? Those wars were really horrendous, right? And apart from the killings in Syria, in Yemen, and in Iraq, we did not see a mass, what they call assassination of Shiites, right? Of course, what happened in Yemen is one of the greatest catastrophe in our civilization. But still, it is not as bad as the war between the Catholic and the Protestants during that time. So, as I said over here, that if we had seen wars, it was during the Safavid Empire. It was between the Ottoman and the Safavid Empire, but it were more of this political power, as what we said before, right? The Safavid later on, the Ottoman gained reign over the Safavid, if you look at the history. So as we can see that even in Southeast Asia, right, there are diaspora of Shiites, even in this country, in Indonesia, in Thailand, Patani, and in many other parts of the Southeast Asia. And to me, like they had managed to live according to their belief, previously. Now they are being vilified. But previously they were able to live according to their belief. And we can see that over the last 50 years, there are many scholars, or I would say it started during the time of Muhammad Abdul, about 100 years ago. They started it, and then it was being followed by his disciple, Mahmud Shaltut, who basically reconciled between the two, reconciled between the two. And that is why Shia is still being taught at Al-Azhar, is being accepted as one of the denomination in Islam. Yeah, that's what as we know from history. I would say that like this started when during the Iranian Revolution, right, in 1978, when it started, then you can see that because the Shiites gained power, then when there's power, as what I said previously, right, then you can see this confrontation between the two, a more stronger animosity and a more stronger confrontation that led to bloodshed. It was basically a competition for influence and power, right? And as we know that this has gone through for many years. I would say that because of this, and because of the incitement for Iraq to invade Iran just after the Iranian Revolution, this has somehow created a kind of backlash by the between the two, right, between the Sunni and the Shiites. And if you look at the social and economic position of the Shiites, they were basically they were what we call as marginalized in our society, right? Or in any other Muslim states, they are the marginalized community, right? They are poor, many of them are illiterate, and so on and so forth. And we look at, like for example in Bahrain and in Iraq, for example, right? Bahrain, majority of the population are Shiites. Majority are Shiites, but the rulers are Sunni. And that is the reason why this feeling of alienation among the Shiites, because they feel that they have to strive for their rights, for emancipation and legitimacy. And we look at in Lebanon, for example, right? In 1960s, under the leadership of Ayatollah Musa Sadr, the same thing had happened, right? And now, if we look at this part of the country, Lebanon, you have three denominations to govern the country. Okay, you have the president, the prime minister, and the speaker. I think president, prime minister, and speaker, they must come from three different denominations. They must come one from Sunni, one from Shiite, and one from the Christian. It must be like that. It is in their constitution. You understand what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say is that Lebanon had tried its best to foster harmony among them, so that they have these three different leaders with three different denominations to govern the country. And you know, it has started a long time ago, right? We look at why this Shia movement, for example, became radicalized. It was basically partly, or I would say, main effect was the Israeli or the Zionist invasions in Lebanon in 1982. And of course, we noticed and we realized at that time that was the what they call the strongest army that fought against the Israeli invasion was not only the Lebanese army but also Hezbollah at that time, yeah? Which is basically considered as a radicalized Shia group. Yeah? So in post-war Iraq, sectarian conflicts is the result of two interrelated factors. Okay. One is years of discrimination against the Shia by the repressive Iraqi government. During the time of Saddam Hussein, they were being repressed. The Shia were being repressed, right? And the second was fears directed among the Sunnis about their future economic and political position under a Shia-dominated government. And then now, because now after Saddam Hussein was the demise of Saddam Hussein, then you know the government was installed to the Shiites, and now the Sunni felt that like what is going to happen to them. On a broader scale, the latest intensification of sectarian tension toward the Muslim world reflects a Western strategy of instrumentalizing sectarian differences to forge a regional alliance against Iran. So I would say, if you look at this particular slide, then you will understand about the first slide or the second slide that I mentioned to you about the envious nature of the Jews at that time, during the time, the Medinan period, and now what we see is that basically the West were trying to use the sectarian conflict to ensure this sectarian conflict. Basically, one is to weaken the Muslims, the Muslim Ummah, and secondly, it was a regional alliance against Iran. Yeah. So now, I think this is probably the most important thing for us to understand about geopolitics, because Dr. Frederick just now has mentioned to us everything about the theoretical aspect of unity and so on and so forth. But I think for us to understand about unity, we have to understand geopolitics. So I would say that many of us tend to believe in a lot of theories and conspiracy theories and so on and so forth, but we did not really try to understand about geopolitics. This is an area for the international relations students to look into, and this is basically the area that we are weak to understand. And we are weak basically because we tend to look at everything as Sunni and Shia conflict. The war and everything is about Sunni and Shia, right? So I would say this particular thing is that power and authority and control over wealth and resources have been at the base of much of the sectarianism in the Muslim world in the past. And this is also true. This is also true in the 21st century. We look at this, okay? We look. Because, can you hear me? Okay, sorry. Yeah. This, what I wanted to say is that because there is this tendency or this kind of infiltration by the, well, I would say the Western agents and so on and so forth, they try to portray everything as a theological conflict between between Sunni and Shia, right? Without looking at deeper into the real reason why this conflict happened. So I would like to show to you a few things I think very important for you to understand. For example, look at the Syrian conflict. Now in this country, when the Syrian conflict happened, you see the mushrooming all the Syrian care and this and that, all kind of humanitarian NGOs trying to, try and get money and food and stuff to be sent to Syria. Because basically our mood, they say, the Sunni brothers were being killed by the Shia. But nothing happened when the Shiites were being killed by Sunnis, were being bombed by Saudis. Right? Recently, like one busload of children were being killed, right, by torpedoes by Saudis. I didn't hear anything from any Muslim scholars in this country that basically condemned that killing, that merciless killing of children. Like we somehow rather, because we do not understand this whole situation, and basically if you look at the geopolitics of it, the war in Syria was basically because of this gas pipeline that they wanted to build from Qatar and through Syria and Turkey and straight to Europe, and they would reduce the European dependency of gas from Russia. So it was huge. It was about economy, right? It was more than about sectarian conflict. But we did not see this. We did not understand this. So as I said here, what is dramatized instead is the so-called Shia oppression of the Sunni majority in Syria. I do not say that Bashar al-Assad is a saint. Don't get me wrong. Please do not get me wrong. I am not trying to portray that he is a saint. I am saying that we have to understand this. This is beyond the Sunni and Shia conflict, right? Yeah. Okay. So as I say here, like this killing of the pilgrims previously, in 2005, the Hajj stampede. 464 of these Hujjaj that were killed were basically Iranians, right? But then the Saudi cleric at that time said that these Iranians, they are children of Maji, right? I mean, it's basically trying to demonize the Iranians, the Shiites. And of course, it was a larger attempt to make Arabs suspicious of the Persians, right? If you look at it, this is very interesting, right? This is very interesting. If you look at the animosity between Saudi Arabia and Iran, it all started after the Iranian Revolution. It's about contestation for power between Iran and Saudi, right? Before this, have you ever heard that, during the reign of, or maybe you're still young, maybe you're still young to realize this, maybe of most of the participants here. But before this, like they could live happily between each other. There's no problem between Shiites and Sunni, between Saudis and Iranians. But why it happened? It happened because when the Shiites started to exert the power via the Iranian Revolution. Yeah, I wrote a lot, and I'm going to share these slides with you. You can read the slides again, right? But what I'm trying to say is that, there has been an effort there has been an effort with all these Western powers, these colluding Western powers, and who are supplying basically the weapons to Saudi Arabia to kill the Yemenis? None other than Western powers. The British, the Americans, the Australians, even the Australians, even the Australians. So basically, what they intend, the ultimate intention is to divide the Muslim land, is to divide Syria and to divide Iraq along sectarian line. When states are divided, it makes it easier for Western powers to control and dominate the region, which has always been their goal. If you look at Sykes-Picot agreement, right? I think all of you have heard about this. This was the starting of the incursion of the Zionists into Palestine, right? And now what's happening is that the Palestinian land were being basically confiscated by the Zionist regime. And if you look, I do not have the slides over here, but if you look at the map, from 1948 until now, that the Zionist entity is growing and the Palestinian land is shrinking, right? So that's what they want. Trying to dominate and trying to break the Muslim unity and trying to dominate their land. So there is a state in this region itself, in West Asia and North Africa. There's also pushing for such an agenda. We're not talking only about Western powers, about the states and other European powers, but also the state of Israel. Yeah. So for Israel, for its survival, Israel needs a very weak neighbor or weak neighbors, right? A weak Syria, a weak Jordan, right? So a weak Iraq. That's the whole intention of it, right? That's why it's also sought to its protectors, the US and Britain, to dismantle the Iraqi armed forces after the Anglo-American invasion and repression of Iraq, since it knew that these armed forces had all along preserved the unity of the Iraqi state. They knew that, in order for them to make Iraq weak, is to dismantle the Iraqi force, right? Because the Iraqi force has been able to maintain this unity among Sunni and Shia before the incursion of Iraq. I would say that this is also the aim in Syria, where it hopes the armed forces representing different religious tendencies in Syria will be defeated, thus paving the way for the disintegration of the state along sectarian lines. If you look at Syrian army, right, the conscripts of Syrian army are Sunnis. So if you are thinking that Bashar al-Assad, all the army of Bashar al-Assad are Shiites and they're killing the Sunnis, you're wrong. You are very, very wrong. If you look at the composition of the Syrian army, the conscripts are basically almost 100% Sunnis. So, the war is not as simple as we thought. It's not as simple as we envisage in our mind, that our Sunni brothers will be killed by the Shiites over there. And of course, the ultimate aim for the Jewish regime is to show that there is what we call as a conflict, a sectarian conflict among the Muslim world. Okay, and we look at some Muslim countries in the world today, such as Qatar and Saudi Arabia. They were funding the rebels, and of course, Americans were funding the rebels as well, to overthrow Bashar al-Assad, right? We looked at even the former President Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, they all kept saying, and now this Trump, they kept saying that they want a democracy in Syria. They want a democracy in Syria. But who are they funding? They say moderate rebels. Are there any moderate rebels in Syria? Please do your reading and do your research on this particular aspect. There are no moderate rebels in Syria. Okay? Basically, all the arms that will be given to groups. They are affiliated to Al-Qaeda or group affiliated to what they call as ISIS, right? So, you know, it's paradoxical, you know, this what they call this whole idea is very paradoxical. You know, you're trying to say that we want democracy, but you are funding or you are giving arms to the rebels who are basically do not believe in democracy, who would say that democracy is kufr. It's ridiculous, right? Just I think last week I had a meeting with one officer from the States, right? Who came from the States, who was probably a director of this anti-terrorism unit in the States. And when I was discussing with him, I said, you know, and he kept asking me, you know, what do you think is the reason for this rise of fundamentalism and radicalism and terrorism among the Muslims? I say, you look, to me, if you say that it's because Islam is inherited in Islam itself, it is not true. To me, I dissect it in two different dimensions. One would be the endogenous factors. One would be the exogenous factors. Sorry to use the medical term. Endogenous means something intrinsic, okay? Something that is within Islam itself. That is probably the misinterpretation or misreading of some of the verses of jihad. Right? The thing is that when we say it's misreading, misinterpretation, those who are reading in such a way will say that we were the one who misread and misinterpreted the Quran. So it's very difficult. It's a very difficult issue. Because if you look at the Quran itself, how we read the Quran, I will always say this thing. You look at when the Khawarij were fighting against Imam Ali called them, and asked them, and it was this could be read and be written by Shawkani. Imam Shawkani written this. He assembled all the Khawarij and in front of him, and then he asked them to bring the Quran, right? To bring the Quran, and they brought the Quran in front of them, and then Imam Ali, he took his sword and he put his sword over the Quran, and he says, what did he say? He asked the Quran to basically read, to recite, right? To recite. And this Khawarij said, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's the Quran, you know. It cannot give any, it cannot read to you, or it cannot give any meaning to you at all. And Imam Ali said, and that's the reason. Right? That's the reason why I did that. To show that we humans, you basically are giving the meaning of the words of the Quran. You are giving, how you read the Quran gives the meaning of the word of the Quran. Right? If you want to read it in a way to basically to support your agenda of terrorism agenda, then the Quran will be supporting your terrorism agenda. If you read that it's going to give unity, as what our professor has mentioned just now, of course, that will bring us to unity. There are so many verses that ask إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ. There are so many verses in the Quran that call us for unity. If you want to propagate our idea of unity, of course, we can use the Quran itself. So I would say this is the problem that we are facing us. And I told him, and that is basically the endogenous factor, right? The endogenous factor is basically probably comes from Muslim itself, how they interpreted the Quran, what they felt as basically God's instruction for them to do. But secondly, there's another important factor, right? Apart from these endogenous factors, there are these exogenous factors. the external factors. Okay? What are these external factors? I told the officer, I said, it's your foreign policy. It's your foreign policy. It's the United States foreign policy that has caused this kind of problem in this world. It's the foreign policy that is saying that it wants to propagate democracy in the Muslim world at one hand, and on the other hand is supporting ISIS indirectly, right? They say it's moderate rebels, but moderate rebels don't exist. And they're supporting, authoritarian regimes around the world. They're supporting Assisi, who managed to overthrow the Muslim Brotherhood government. They are supporting the Saudis, who were basically, 14 out of 19 of the 9/11 suicide bombers were Saudis, basically. And if you read the declassified document to the Senate recently, the recently declassified document on 9/11, you will see that these people, they were somehow linked to the government of Saudi Arabia. Just read the paper, right? Yeah, I mentioned this. Yeah, 15 out of 19 mass murderers came from Saudi Arabia, and yet we want to believe, Saudi Arabia is what do you call wanted democracy in Syria. We wanted to believe that. I would say that perhaps all the while we forget the big truth, that the attempt to crush the Syrian dictatorship was not because of the love for Syrians and their quest for democracy. It wasn't that, it wasn't that. It was, to me, I would say that it was all about Iran, yeah, and the desire to crush the Islamic Republic and its nuclear plans, if they exist, and has nothing to do with human rights or the rights to life and the death of Syrian babies. As I said, when after the revolution, when Iran came to power, it was basically the battle between these two powers, right? The Saudi Arabia and the Iranians. And it's because of that. It's because of this animosity that has led to this catastrophe. And what we see in the Muslim world today is basically a power play between two big countries, right? Or two big entities among the Muslim world. I won't take long. I will come to the conclusion of my talk. I would prefer to have more questions and answers, and we'll try and dissect this particular issue. So it goes back to the main topic of my paper today. Is there a solution to Muslim disunity? I would say that because if you look at this disunity, as I said previously earlier on, that it is not as bad, probably as bad as this disunity between the Catholics and the Protestants before, right? But I believe that probably there are several steps that we could do to help to diffuse this tension among the Sunni and the Shia, right? First, Muslim governments, whether Sunni or Shia, should respect the rights of their citizens irrespective of their religious belief. The Sunni majority countries should treat their Shia citizens as equal, and Shia majority countries should do the same regarding the Sunni minorities. To me, if we can try and do this, even in our country, right, we treat them as equals to us. We don't put them behind bars with their babies just simply because they're Shiites. We do not raid their houses just simply because they're Shiites. We have to basically respect the freedom of belief, right, among us. And for the Shia government, for example, in Iran and Iraq, we hope that they will do the same. They will give equal rights to the Sunni minorities in their country. But more importantly, because if you look at the demography, we see that only 10% of the Muslims in this world are Shiites, 90% are Sunnis. So basically, I think that this advice are more for the Sunni government to accept this, right? To be able to allow them to live as human and as citizens, right? And this could probably be achieved by embracing the Aman message. I believe that many of you have read the Aman message. It was being initiated by the King of Jordan before, and it acknowledged 8 denominations within Islam. The Hanafi, the Maliki, the Shafi'i, the Hanbali, the Ja'fari, and the Zaidi among the Shiites. And then it also acknowledged the Zahiri and Ibadi. Zahiri and Ibadi. Yeah? Ibadi is basically main mazhab in Oman. Any of you over here from Oman? Because I am a student, Monash University from Oman, right? And when I said, "Oh, Oman, I know Oman," and she was surprised because she thought that we do not know about Oman. Of course, we know Oman is the what they call the state mazhab is Ibadi. Ibadi is basically, it came from Khawarij, right? It came from Khawarij, and this is one of the mazhab that, you know, for 1,400 years that survived, and one more is what did I say just so much? The Ja'fari and the Zaidi, right? Yeah. So there are 10 of them, yeah, and Zahiri as well. So, to me, this message not only articulates the principles and practices that all Muslims, regardless of their doctrinal school or sect, subscribe to, but also pleads to mutual respect and a sincere commitment to the well-being of the entire Ummah and indeed the human family. Meaning to say that if we embrace this, we can accept. I believe there are Shias among you, yeah, among the audience. And you know, when I stayed in Australia, you know, when we prayed in the mosque, you know, we were praying Sunni and Shias in one self together, right? We hope that this kind of unity will be able to be achieved in this particular country. If we embrace this, then we respect. We respect the Shias for their belief, right? And we hope, and of course, the Shia will respect us for our belief, right? But more importantly, because they are minorities, so they feel this sense of insecurity, right? And what more, when you go to prayer I believe not in UIA when your mosque is very good, but you know, if you go to attend prayers elsewhere in KL or Selangor, you would hear this vilification of Shias. At least in the second khutbah, you know, it's just like during the time when they were trying to vilify Ali, right? Before by the Umayyad, before his Umar bin Abdul Aziz changed to change the verse to another verse that we recite until today, right? Second, Muslim countries should desist from using religion as an instrument of security and foreign policy, instead focus on practical ways of resolving conflicts and building viable institutions for conflict prevention and promotion of peaceful relations. I'm trying to say is that the problem is that when we use, you know, religion as the main value in trying to establish our foreign policy and so on, is going to cause a huge problem, right? Among Muslims, among Sunni and Shiites, and also among the Ahmadis as well. There are Ahmadis in this country as well. So we have to look at it, right? And third, which is I think is the most difficult part, is for the great powers they should not manipulate sectarian division in pursuit of their interests. As history bears witness, any short-term gain tends to be accompanied by long-term trouble and loss. what we are seeing is that, you know, this is basically the agenda of the West. And whether we like it or not, you know, to me, what they think most is about their economy. It's about their economy. Why this Muammar Gaddafi of Libya, why was he overthrown? Do you know that he was trying at that time to make a single African currency and not to use any Australian dollars as a mode of transaction, right? And that was a great reason, you know, what do you call, there was a reason for these Western powers, especially the US, to try and destroy him. And look at what happened to Libya now. It was worse, much worse than before, when during the time of Muammar Gaddafi. And they were saying, no, we're trying to bring democracy to you. But in actual fact, it's about money. It's about the control of the economy. Right? Like one American politician, what he says, he said, is economy stupid? It's about economy, right? So we have to look at it. We have to look at the broader spectrum, not to be confined ourselves to just an idea that this conflict among Muslims is basically an ideological conflict, but it's more to it. There are more to it. We have to understand all this. And I advise all of you to read more, to engage with more people, and to try and talk to professors like just now, to try and understand about the current situation in Muslim world. I think that Muslim unity can only be achieved if we understand that it's not only us, but there are some external factors that play their role in trying to create this unity among us. With that, I thank you.